Keonte George is thriving. The Jazz may have really found something with the 16th pick out of Baylor. It's next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan. Today, we'll look at Keonte George, who is thriving over the last 3 games, playing big-time basketball for the Utah Jazz. Have they found something? Did Danny Ainge find something in that 16th pick, along with Justin Zanuck in the NBA draft? We'll dig into it a little bit. He's really been pretty darn fantastic for the Utah Jazz here recently over the last 11 ball games. We'll dig into a few kind of in-depth things of how he's been and how he's played and his development and what's next and all of those kind of things for him. The anatomy of how you make really bad decisions and then end up on the wrong side of a 20-0 run by the Boston Celtics, who are super good. And we learned some stuff last night on how good they are, but also not particularly well done decision-making by the Utah Jazz. And is Walker Kessler in a sophomore slump that is concerning? We'll talk about all those things today on Locked on Jazz. Thank you very much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. Thumbs up if you like Keonte dropping 30. K dropped 28. Give us a thumbs up. Helps the show a great deal. Thank you to making Locked on Jazz your first listen. And thank you to the everydayers out there that make Locked on what it is. Thanks so much. Last 3 games, Keonte has gone for 31 on 12 of 23 shooting, 29 on 10 of 17 shooting, and 26 on 9 of 17 shooting. That's pretty great for a first-year point guard. He has also, in 30 games, gotten off 32, or 3 games, gotten off 32 three-point shots. That's awesome. He's getting about 4 or 5 assists. He's making his threes, obviously. He's 16 of 32 in that stretch, which is 50%, which is pretty remarkable. So we can eliminate the one concern we had, or at least I had on Keonte, was the ball wasn't going in the basket. Earlier this year, the ball wasn't going in the basket. He was trending as a sub 40% field goal percentage shooter and a sub 33% three-point shooter, and that's a really scary combo. That's over. Like, no longer worry about that comp. Since the trades, he's averaging 18 points a game, 6 assists, shooting 44% for the field, and 43% from 3. That's really since he's moved into the starting lineup. He didn't start the first game in Phoenix. So the last, I think, 11 games it is. And he's playing 30 every night. And now he's doing it without Lowry, where the entire focus, if there is a scouting report, is on him that night. This is real. Like this, I don't think there's a lot that where he's able to hide right now. I think teams are aware of him. He's probably near the top of the scouting report, and it's pretty great. If you take it back a month, he still has massive. This is the part that has me the most excited. He still has massive growth. If you take the top 60 pick and roll guards since January 9th or February 9th, which is, I think, the day after the trades, when he gets his increased time, and we don't have the greatest roll bigs in the world. Keonte points per pick and roll is 50th out of 60. Mike Conley is 58th, interestingly enough. Otherwise, it's generally young players down there. Trae Young hasn't played much, was struggling. And just if you want to know, the best pick and roll player in the NBA since February 9th is Zion Williamson. Kind of crazy, isn't it? He's taking 200 pick and roll. He's averaging 1.24 points per pick and roll. How has this world changed, by the way? Just as a side note, how has the world changed? Here are the top pick and roll guys in the NBA over the last month. Zion, Jalen Williams in Sacramento, LeBron James, and Jason Tatum. I mean, they're all 6'7". Austin Reeves is back churning. Luka, then TJ McConnell, Colin Sexton, Tyrese Halliburton, and Trey Jones. Okay. So what that tells me is there has been like 3 sequences of Keonte playing pick and roll. Early in the season, he wasn't very good. Then he got really good when he came off the bench, and now he's not very good again. Okay, that's just growth. That's fine. Keontae's not supposed to be perfect. And he's not a finished product at all, certainly. But we're seeing him, while not being perfect and not having unusual pick and roll numbers or not having something else, finding a way to navigate and be effective. It's really impressive. And his body's the right size at 6'4". He lost the weight from last year in the season. So now that I think gives him an opportunity for him to, probably figure out how to use muscle and get stronger in the offseason. And he is now suddenly having a really bona fide good rookie year with every indicator that he's going to be a big time player. Like, how far? I don't know. Like, I saw some people the other night saying he's verging on being Donovan Mitchell. Just feel like that's a big jump. We'll talk about in our third segment today that we did this last year when we decided that Walker Kessler was Rudy Gobert, and now we can't figure out why he's not Rudy Gobert, who's the second greatest defensive player in the history of the NBA. So I'm not going to go that far, but we're just seeing, massive growth. November, the guy shot 33% from the field and 33% from 3. December, Keonte shot 41-36. January, he shot 39 and 30. Like, I'm not lying. Like, that sequence of like, okay, we were February 1, and this kid's on the wrong side of 40-33. That's a bad spot to be. And since February 1st, he's playing 30 minutes a night. His usage rate has gone up and his efficiency has gone up. It's pretty exciting. And so, and without Lowry in the lineup the last 2 games, he's really had to take the burden of this team. Since February 1st, now he's not starting all those. He started 11 to 15, 17 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 46% from the field, 44% from 3, with over half of his shots as threes. It's terrific. Absolutely terrific. He just kind of came out of All-Star break and figured it out a little bit. And now the task is him understanding what 30 minutes a night is. And, Will said it the other day, you can have all the veterans tell you all the things you want. You can have everybody kind of explain to you this and that. There's nothing like feeling it. And he's feeling it right now against the best guards in the NBA on a night in and night out basis, and learning the tricks of the trade and how to handle himself. And the whole thing about Keonte from the first day is he's looked like he belonged. And the second thing about Keonte from the first day is how much he likes the game. And those 2 things are clearly carrying him right now, as he is playing fabulous basketball and thriving. And Jazz fans should just be ecstatic on this stretch of ball. And now he's got another month to do it and build off it against some of the best teams in the league who are all playing from positioning, who are going to be spotlighting him and figuring out what they can do. So massive growth. There's a great comment from Evan Brads, who's Jazz player development guy, when I was talking with him at one point this season. And he was, and I was concerned on Keonte. There were the 3, I shared on the show, there was a 3-play sequence kind of over a few days where it's like, what's going on? And Evan made a great point. He's like, okay, that's fine. But don't worry about rookies when they do it the first time. Watch what they do the second time. So when somebody punks you, what do you do the second time? When you're frustrated, what do you do the second time? What do you do the second time? And Keontae's generally second times have been good. There's still areas where, getting back on defense and various, frustration moments and things like that. And, he needs good role models around him to do that. And so I think you're seeing massive, massive growth from Keonte. It's pretty cool to watch him, and pretty exciting. How do you get on the wrong side of a 20-0 run? You make a bunch of bad decisions. Will talked about it last night. Overall, pretty good night. Actually, Boston's really good. And there's some cool things about, when you're good, your role players all know where they fit, and then they play really well, and then you just keep getting better. That's what we saw last night. We'll talk about it coming up. Some bad decisions in the midst of a 20-0 run here. We're just getting started on Locked on Jazz. Today's edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also and in Logan. The Chevy lineup of trucks, that's the Colorado and the Silverado, just absolutely fabulous. The Murdochs, that's 80 plus years in Utah, making sure you get the no regrets experience. The SUV lineup of Chevrolet, the Trax, all the way up to the Suburban and the Tahoe that you know well. Within the middle is now the Blazer and the Trailblazer, and the Equinox. They've really filled out that SUV lineup fabulously over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also in Logan. If you're going to stop by, please feel free to email me first. We'd love to make sure that you get the VIP treatment that you deserve by being a Locked On everydayer. My email is dlock09@gmail.com. We'd love to set you up and get you that great VIP experience over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross and in Logan. Today's show is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Let's make sure we're taking care of your ride or die, whether it's superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, or more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. Passion, drive, patience brings home the trophy for your car. 122 million parts on your number one ride or die. You always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay's Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions applies. eBay Guaranteed Fit only to U.S. customers. eBay Motors, and eBay Motors gives you over 122 million parts, giving you the Guaranteed Fit. So the Celtics went on a 20-0 run last night. Happens. Happened to the Clippers. Clippers had a 40-point swing in their game last night. Clippers were up 22 and lost by 18 to Minnesota. So it happens. By the way, Locked On Sports, this is super exciting. We launched the first ever national 24/7 channel that you might be aware of. Well, guess what? Locked On Sports today, baseball fans, mark your calendars, March 20th, 7 o'clock Eastern, for the best MLB preview show coming exclusively to Locked On Sports today. It's from 7 to 10 at night on March 20th. Be the first to get the local insight from MLB experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it March 20th, 7 p.m. on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream on YouTube or free on Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's the Major League Baseball preview show, 7 o'clock, March 20th, for all you baseball fans. That's a week from today. If you're watching this on the day I recorded it. Otherwise, it's not a week from today. So we cut it. Really, the Jazz played all right last night. You're playing without Lowry. They have the three best players on the floor last night. And you're battling. And when Holiday and Tatum were off the floor, the Jazz were really good. Then they didn't have the three best players on the floor. And the Jazz get it to 2. 93-91, and then they close the quarter. Clarkson turns it over, and then Clarkson misses. It's a 5-0 run. And then Horton-Tucker misses a not very good 3 attempt. One-legged, fading back, could have been set. Talen's improved his catch and shoot 3-point shooting a great deal. He's gone from 30% to 36%, but on that one, he had his legs kicked, and it was all weird, and next thing you know, it's 102-91. So now we really have got to bear down right now. It's 102-91. We're on the verge of getting blown out. It's about to get ugly. You're down 9. And this is where, frankly, we don't have the personnel right now to go get it. This is where we're trying to get Lowry to develop, that if Lowry's on the floor, you go give him the ball in a spot and let him go to work. That's what Boston would do with Tatum. It's what Milwaukee can do with Dame or Giannis. It's what Dallas can do with Luka. It's what Joel Embiid, if he's there, is getting the ball at the nail. So if you're on the wrong side of what's kind of a subtle little run right now, it's 93-91. Now it's all of a sudden 102-91. So it's a 9-0 run, and you need a bucket. And Jordan Clarkson tries to go one-on-one on Derek White. I love Jordan's confidence and all that he brings to the team and all of those things. But one-on-one on Derek White, or as Will Hardy told Colin Sexton, not Drew Holiday under any circumstance, when Peyton Pritchard is on the floor, that's where you got to go. And the interesting thing about Jordan on this, is that in the third quarter, when Jordan got going, he killed Peyton Pritchard. Killed him. And in fact, I could probably go find the defensive numbers last night. At least it sure felt like he killed him. And because one of my calls was, Mom, I need help. And then here it is, like one of the key plays of the game. And Peyton Pritchard's on the floor. And Jordan goes one-on-one on Derek White, who's like, Derek White and Drew Holiday are both going to be first-team all-defense this year, I think. Like, it's just a bad matchup. Like, Jordan went 2 for 6 last night when trying to score on Derek White. Like, it's just a bad matchup. He got 2 for 2 on Xavier Tillman, 2 for 3 on Peyton Pritchard. Scored, plus he also dished out a 3 off beating Peyton Pritchard. So it's just like, that's just not great. Then Keonte goes for a no-pass possession 3. I'd love to talk to Will about this play because on one level, it's the right read. Kornet drops back on a pick and roll, and so that's open, and you're telling Keonte you want him to shoot. On the other end, you're on the wrong end of an 11-0 run where on the possession before you didn't move the ball, and the ball has been moving pretty well, generally for the Jazz. So you would think that you would want to maybe move the basketball. Next possession, they try pick and roll again with Walker. Walker and Keonte's pick and roll is just not very good right now. I'm just like, they just don't seem to have a connection of like timing and when to go and when I mean, at least that's my like feeling on it. It doesn't look smooth to me. Walker's not available on the roll against Boston because they're bringing another guy in. I'm not sure that's on Walker or on Keonte. It did mean that Taylor Horton-Tucker on this pick and roll is wide open at the top because that guy has rolled down into Walker's lane. And, you know, and I do not, Walker was never making contact. He was getting out on the roll every time. But Kornet's dropping, so I think you should be making contact. Since February 9th, Walker and Keonte's pick and roll is a 0.57. It's probably, I don't want to overdo this, but of combinations that have run 30 pick and rolls together, I would guess it might be the worst in the NBA. Like that's a pretty horrific number. So they just are not connected yet on how to play pick and roll together. Now, on the other end, Walker's not starting and Keonte is, so you just don't have that many times in which it's happening right now. And so that's probably part of it. But they, I think they've probably run 30, 35 pick and rolls together. So it's not been a lot, but they're not connected. And you could see it on this play and you kind of could see it all night. And I was actually asking Ron on the broadcast, like, shouldn't Walker be laying the pick if they're not switching and they're dropping and he's rolling out of it? So it wasn't entirely. Again, that kind of says to me that it is not the worst in the NBA, by the way. I just pulled it up. There are 6 combinations that have been less efficient, including Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, which is interesting because that one feels like it was very good against us. So then Keonte plays pick and roll again with Walker and takes a runner and misses. It's 105-91. And then Jordan goes one-on-one on Derek White again. Doesn't score. And then it's over. Like Keonte gets pushed by Pritchard on a play and they don't call the foul and it's kind of over. It's like a 20-0 run. And, on one level, we just didn't have anyone on the floor to stop it. On the other level, we didn't make very good decisions. And that's what Will, I think, is really focusing on here down the stretch is like, how do you make better decisions in those moments? Understand who's on the floor. He talked about it post-game. Like there's a cool story. Sarah Todd wrote about it today in the Deseret News where Collins got Xavier Tillman guarding him and Collins' instinct is to call for a pick. So he calls for a pick. Well, he calls for Drew Holiday to come up. Drew Holiday's the only is better than Derek White. Now all of a sudden, Keonte's being guarded by. Now all of a sudden, Collins being guarded by Keonte because he called the pickup. Now to Collins' credit, he flips around, he calls Xavier Tillman back up, gets him switched and hits the 3. But it's just not how it's supposed to work. So Will called it, made a quick sub, talked to him about it, and just kind of said, "Hey, that's not we don't want Drew Holiday involved." And so there's just a lot of that going on. I think in the case of Jordan, I think it's confidence. Like Jordan just gets rolling. Is so confident is the flamethrower is on, is seemingly unstoppable, and may not care who's guarding him. In the thing about Jordan though is that flame can also go the other way. He made 3 in a row, carried them in the third quarter. I think 2 of the 3 were against Pritchard, and then he goes 2 for 8 to close, and 2 of those are I think he missed 5 or 6 in a row in the middle. kind of when the game gets away from us. So, but that's also, I'm not sure Jordan is right now without Lowry in that circumstance. Jordan is the guy to go to, and I'm not sure that's where Jordan's at his greatest. Jordan's evolved so beautifully in so many other ways this year, moving the basketball and playing off guys. And when he was at his best, he was always second or third best player on the floor making plays. So I'm not sure that's the best place for Jordan to be. But anyway, I thought Will, if you want to learn the game more and get smarter as a fan, I thought Will was a really interesting post game. Like, hey, we've got to get better at who we're involving, what decisions we're making. That's a good example. All right, there is concern right now from the Jazz fan base about one Walker Kessler. Let's touch on whether this concern is legit and whether or not Walker Kessler is slipping, sliding, sophomore slumping, whatever you want to call it, as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. There's the #1 daily fantasy sports game. Great deal of fun over at Prize Picks. With over 3 million members, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just you against the numbers. You pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's also demon time on Prize Picks. You can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You turn $10 into 1,000. Demons and goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play Prize Picks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts, and you can now win up to $100 in your money with as little as 4 correct picks. It's all over at Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports game. So go right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the promo code LockedOnNBA. Your first deposit will be matched up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Today's show is also brought to you by Robinhood Retirement. Robinhood Retirement. This is got some. Did you know that even if you have a 401, you can still have an IRA? What are we talking about? What are 401? Yeah, right. Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most from your retirement thanks to the IRA with 3% match. That's pretty cool. The offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some of the legal stuff. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk and includes loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% matching on transfers is subject to terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. There seems to be a rising concern on Walker Kessler. So let's touch on a few things. One, I really strongly believe that this is the natural progression of a young player. If they have a good year 1, they do not have a good year 2. They make their jump between year 2 and year 3. If they have a bad year 1, they generally get better in year 2. And then maybe they make a jump year 2 to year 3. I think what happens is you come into the league, you have no idea what's going to hit you. You play, you do things naturally, you do well. And then you have a bunch of things that you don't do particularly well, and you go work on those things because you didn't do them well in your rookie year, and you're going to, of course, get better. And then if you've had a good first year, you go work on those things, and then you come back out and you have worked on them, and you're still not good at them. You're still not good enough at them because the league is that hard. And then what happens between year 2 and year 3 is you're like, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to do those things in the league. So I'm going to go work on the things I'm already good at and get better at them. And that's when you figure out how you're going to make an impact in the league. So that's my general take, is that the first mistake that we all make when we're analyzing players is assuming that the player who has a really good first year is going to get better naturally in their second year. Keegan Murray had a very good first year for the Sacramento Kings last year. He is they are super worried in Sacramento that he's not as good as he was. He's basically having the same year. His three-point shooting's down from 41 to 35, which is disconcerting to the fans there. But otherwise, kind of across the board, he's a similar player with a little bit higher usage and hasn't done a great deal. Benedict Mathurin made a run at being rookie of the year last year, and he is this year playing the exact same, taking the amount of shots. He's actually making his three from 32 to 37, but he's scoring less. And after being fourth in rookie of the year voting, he's kind of just become rolled into his natural role in the NBA. So those are players that back up thing. Now, if you're like Johnny Davis in Wisconsin and you have a terrible first year and then your second year seems feckless too, now we're concerned. Okay. And Jalen Williams is just a superstar. So, and I think even like if you looked at like Jabari Smith, who I thought had kind of an average first year, he shot 40% and 30% from three, and he's suddenly upped it up to 45 and 36 and gotten a lot better this year. He looks really, really good. That's the natural progression. So if you look at Walker, who I remind you is the 22nd pick of the draft, he had a really, really good first year in the NBA. He started 40 games. He played 74. He averaged 9 points, and he shot 72%, and he did all these great things. And now this year, he seems less impactful. The fact is, he's kind of the exact same as he was last year. We just have so many more expectations on him. And I would back that up by saying he's gone from averaging 9 points a game to averaging 8. He's playing 23 minutes a game last year. He's playing 23 minutes a game this year. His rebounding is 8 to 8, 8.4 to 7.5, so it's actually 0.9 off. His free throw shooting has actually gotten better. He's a little less aggressive offensively this year. And I don't think there's any question on Walker that he seems to just not have the same joy and zest that he had a year ago. I think that's fairly true. He also got injured to start the year, looked not very good. And then I thought he looked slow last night, which might be the foot. The foot might not be as good as we think. And then trying to battle the 7'2" Cornet. Okay, so that's the first thing, is that the regular progression, truthfully, is not just this linear rise up. The second thing on Walker is at the end of last year, if you looked at all the rankings, he was ranked sometimes in the top 100, sometimes not. He generally ranked somewhere between the 22nd and 25th ranked center in the NBA last year. So what does that mean? And is he going to get better than that? Yes, probably. But it means that every night right now where he is in his progression, he's probably overmatched almost every night. And just go through it. Luke Cornet shouldn't necessarily overmatch him, but he's bigger than him. But obviously he's overmatched against Jokic. He will be overmatched against Clint Capella, and he are probably about the same at this point because Clint's really lost a major step. He'll be overmatched in Minnesota against Minnesota. And so that's the first one. The second one is the third one on Walker's. Who do we think he's going to be? So last year, people went insane and decided that he was better than Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert is somehow we forgot is going to go into the Hall of Fame. And that Rudy Gobert is the second best defensive big maybe in the history of the game, along with Olajuwon and Bill Russell. Okay. He's incredible. So I look at Nick Claxton. Nick Claxton was a 31st pick out of Georgia. He's 6'11", 215. He's probably a little bit more of an athlete. He actually thrashed Walker in a game late last year. That's something I think we've all forgotten. Go back and look at some of the games last year. Nick Claxton got Walker badly last year at the end of the year last year. That's where, we were just so happy because he was good. And I think in the offseason, we pumped him up beyond. So if you look at Claxton, Claxton came in the league in his first year, he played 15 games. In his second year, he played 32. In his third year, he played 47. In his fourth year, at 23 years old, he started 76 games. He became really good. And in his fifth year now at Brooklyn, he started all 55 games. And he's really good. He's averaging 12 points and 10 rebounds a game. If you look at Jarret Allen, who I think would be even another great comp, Jarret Allen was the 22nd pick of the draft, just like Walker. 6'11", 243, a little bigger, and can run kind of like Walker. Starts his career in Brooklyn, and as a rookie, he plays a decent amount, has almost a very similar line to Walker, doesn't shoot it nearly as well. He was 19 years old. And the next year, he starts 80 games in Brooklyn, and he just doesn't have a lot of juice. I remember talking to Kenny Atkinson of God, I just got to get this guy to watch Rudy Gobert and see how hard he plays. And then in his third year in Brooklyn, he's again starting. He's averaging 11 points, 10 rebounds, which playing 26 minutes, which Walker probably could do if he was playing 26 minutes. And then he gets traded to Cleveland. And at 23 years old, he clicks in and becomes an all-star. He averages 16 points and 11 rebounds. And then next year, 14 points, 10 rebounds. And then this year he's averaging 16 points and 11 rebounds, having started 60 games. And so it clicks in for him in year 5 at 23 years old. And on Nick Claxton, who we just talked about, it clicks into him on year 4 at 23 years old. And Walker Kessler is currently in year 2 at 22 years old. So hopefully Walker in year 3, which would be the natural progression at 23 years old, or year 4, makes the next jump. The truth is, like, Walker defending inside 6 feet, last year he defended 6.7 shots at minus 13 points. This year he's at 6.6 at minus 13. It's actually the same. Walker's numbers are eerily similar. Now, since in the last 6 games, since the foot injury, he's absolutely feckless. Like, he's having no impact at all on shots and defense and things like that. He looks very similar to when he had the elbow injury early in the year and he didn't have an impact. So if you watched last night, he didn't look right. There's no question. But I just think if you really look at Walker, 2 things. One is you look at centers that are kind of in that ilk. There's a natural progression that takes them time and get their body into where they need to and how they're going to play and what they're going to do to be successful in this league. I mean, you could even look at Rudy if you'd like to. Rudy clicks in and becomes the defensive player of the year for the first time at 25, when he's second in the voting at 24 years old. Like that. If Walker doesn't progress next year or the year after, then that starts to get disconcerting. But right now, I'm not particularly concerned about it. I actually don't think it's a sophomore slump. I think it's the natural flat progression of somebody who had a good regular season in their first year. And it's kind of what you see universally across the league. And it's probably what we'll see out of Keonte next year. Like, we're going to all think Keonte is supposed to become Donovan, and Keontae's probably just going to be, if Keonte is what Keonte is for the last month, that's awesome. It'll probably be a little ebb and flow and up and down. It's young players. This league's really hard. That's it. So is Walker in a sophomore slump? You can decide, but I do think that there's nothing unnatural taking place here. I wouldn't panic. And I do think, it looks as though he's having, in the simplest terms, less fun than he had a year ago. And he's probably is, because of all the expectations on him, and he's got to learn through it. And then, year 2 to year 3 is like, okay, we're not going to work on these things. We're going to get better at the things we're good at and become really, really good at them. And that's kind of the natural progression that players go through in this league. That is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks very much for tuning in. Remember, the Major League Baseball preview show is coming for you on March 20th. That's March 20th, 7 o'clock Eastern. It's going to run from about 7 to 10. So good 3-hour chunk to catch up on the whole Major League Baseball season for you. Now we send you, which has been just awesome and on fire. If you have not watched the Locked On Sports National channel, please do. It's been really great during NFL free agency, bouncing to all the biggest stories, everything that's taking place. Our crew's doing an amazing job. So we'll send you there now to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national 24/7 channel. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV.